Thank you for staying with us on NTV Weekend Edition. Now getting into talk of the nation, the NRM primaries for the parliamentary flag bearers for the position of district women representatives to parliament and the constituency MPs for the ruling party National Resistance Movement have taken center stage in the media, from the campaigns to the voting, in an experiment with a universal adult suffrage voting without using secret ballot. Hasn't happened in 30 years now. This voting system that changed from secret ballot to lining up behind candidates after the party constitution was amended during the January 25th Delegates Conference upon the proposal by the Central Executive Committee, SEC. Now, also the aftermath has come into the media and taken center stage. Joining us on NTV Weekend Edition's Talk of the Nation is Charity Ahibishbwe, the National Coordinator from the Citizen Coalition for Electoral Democracy in Uganda, CCEDU. Good evening and welcome to NTV Weekend Edition's Talk of the Nation, Charity.
Good evening, Rita, and good evening, the viewers out there.
Now, Charity, we'll get right into the conversation by taking a look at what your observations were from the just concluded NRM primaries.
Well, the just concluded NRM primaries for the members of parliament was quite interesting. One of the things that came clear is that the voters decided to speak loud, that those who had participated in the Tojikwatako campaign were dropped. Several ministers have been told bye-bye, and very many MPs that thought they had a take were told bye-bye. And most importantly, it is important to recognize the fact that they put in a lot of money, like Kalisa did put a lot of money into Ibanda election, woman MP election, and John Biabagambi put a lot of money into this election as well, because I'm down in Ibanda and Mbara and Shema and Rubare. I did visit all these polling stations, and this is what I saw. They were giving voters 10,000, 5,000. Some people were given 1,000, 2,000 shillings. But the voters decided, let's take the money, but we will decide on what our choice is. And we saw that come through. Well, voter bribery is a very terrible vice. And to see that the biggest political party could encourage voter bribery was unfortunate. But it is beautiful that the voters still made their point. Secondly, there was the problem of the voting was supposed to start at 10 a.m., between 10 and 11 a.m. Now, the assumption that lining up makes is that everybody will be at the polling station at the time that is stipulated. But what happened is most voters stand up 10 minutes to midday and they missed the woman MP election, especially the women. And when I asked some of them, they said, you know, we have household chores, we have to take care of our homes before we come to the polling station. So there was the gender dynamics and some people being disenfranchised because of time and time not being on their side. But we also saw the whole auspice of the temperature. There was a lot of energy within this NRM primary. And I think that was very exciting. It means that Ugandans are ready to vote despite COVID-19. And but we also saw the use of masks was there. Some people came with their masks to the polling stations, but it was difficult to social distance because lining up becomes difficult for you to keep a distance away from the next voter. So that there was no washing of hands and there was no sanitizers at most polling stations and there was no temperature guns, at least for all the polling stations where our observers were. We deployed at sub-county level because the NRM polling stations were not as clear as the polling stations that the Electoral Commission does provide. But we had one observer per sub-county. In Kayunga, there was disagreement between candidates and there were bullets there, Sembabule, there was a lot of tension because of two powerful families. So there was violence. And every time there is violence and every time there are gangs, there were many gangs within this election because people had given them money and so they had eaten from one or two cups. So what was happening is they were convincing people to join lines of the ones that seemingly looked like they were winning. I hope that going forward, the NRM will learn to deal with secret ballot. It is much easier if the voter is given a chance to go over secret ballot, because the ones that are in the race right now are saying the ones that supported the members of parliament that did not succeed will not be supported.
Now, Charity, you mentioned one particular thing, and that comes to what the NRM should learn. What mistakes did the NRM make in this particular primary? Because there are a number of things that you've highlighted, such as violence that we have seen in the previous primary in 2015, and a number of other things that were raised, apart from the fact that we're dealing with an election within a pandemic. So what mistakes were made, and besides the secret ballot?
Thank you, Rita. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that was made was for the president to overrule the chairperson of the NRM Electoral Commission and suggest to the voters that anybody could vote as long as they showed up at the polling station. The problem with that was that there was no register. A genuine election, or an election that is credible, starts with a clean voters register. Now, the NRM did not have a clean voters register, unfortunately. People showed up at the polling station and they would write your name in a register. And then you would add on to the ones that were in the yellow book. If you ask the returning officials that, hey guys, how many people are at this polling station and are going to vote? Most of them told you, we don't know how many people are voting here. We will tell you the number when the polling is done. So it was difficult then to judge how many people at the polling station. And then we saw many people joining the lines from all over. Remember, the lining up was happening in fields and pitches. People would run from their gardens and just join the line without being registered. Now, that is very wrong. In terms of a growing democracy, if a big political party cannot have clean voters register, then you're almost doing nothing in an election. So what is needed? One, they should come up with a system of where they have a clean voters register, clear-cut polling stations, no question about it. Secondly, also give the voter a chance to secret ballot, other than cause of discomfort and anger, which we saw at the polling stations. People were fighting each other, friends saying, you refuse to come to my line, I called you to support my candidate. And well, we had predicted this much earlier, and we still have a suit in court concerning lining up process, especially for national processes.
Okay, well now let's talk about other political parties who are getting ready for the journey to 2021. They're also going to be having a number of primaries. What advice or what can other political parties such as the National Unity Platform, Forum for Democratic Change, the Democratic Party, among others, learn from this particular election?
One of the things that all the other political parties should learn from this election, one, we must commend the NRM Electoral Commission that at least they had the decency to announce that those who had been dropped were dropped, whether they were minister or MP. I applaud the NRM for having done that. So the other political parties should have the decency to announce those who would have dropped out, whether they are minister or not minister, or whether they wield a lot of influence, just like the NRM did. And secondly, they should learn from the NRM to have clean voters register. The NRM didn't have a clean voters register, and it's one of the things that left many of them disgruntled about the process. So the other political parties, if they're going to do genuine elections, have a clean register, have your members sensitized early enough to know what time the election is going to start, what time the election is going to end. And also please care for the elderly and the lame, those with disability, because the NRM actually in their election at almost all the polling stations that we went to, about 1,956 of them, the elderly and the people with disability were given chairs to sit in, and they were allowed to join the lines when the lines had already been constructed, which I thought was very, very good. And other political parties should learn from that.
Okay. Now, Charity, as I let you go, I want you to comment as an observer what it means when, in particular, the Electoral Commission within the NRM has delayed to declare the winners. It's over 24 hours later and no official declaration. Yes, we're receiving from the district level, but such a delay, what does it do in an electorate?
Now, the delay from many of the places was because of the disgruntlement and the violence. I told you the type of election that the NRM decided to conduct was one of lining up. And that type of election, the stakes are always high. There's a lot of disagreement. There's a lot of discomfort that will happen in such an election. So now when you delay to announce the results, always the voter will think you are changing that result in favor of the one who wields authority or in favor of the one that the party wants, which would be very unfortunate. But for the places where I was, where I could see Honorable Ruktana dropped. Even when he fired bullets, people were not scared. At the tally center in Ibanda last night at about 10, 11 p.m., voters were told, go home, we will declare these results and tell you. They said, we are going nowhere. The DPC showed up with his guns. They said, we are not leaving this tally center. And I was glad that the DPC later said, you know what? Leave the voters alone. Let's announce the results as they have come in. And some people lost and won with as little as 100 voters ahead of another person. But the beauty with having announced last night, despite the tension that was between the various candidates, was that people went home satisfied, some of them complaining, but at least they knew the result. Now, for the places that has not happened, it is unfortunate. It is bad for the voter. They will never trust that result. And it is bad for their electoral commission as NRM. And I think those are the areas of improvement that political party has to undertake.
Well, thank you so much, Charity Ahibishbwe, for joining us on Talk of the Nation, an NTV Weekend edition. That was her, and she is the National Coordinator at the Citizen Coalition for Electoral Democracy in Uganda. Our conversation was taking a look at the NRM primaries and the voting process, and also just the announcement of results as well as the campaigns. Now, we're going to be taking a short break on NTV Weekend edition, but we'll be coming right back with sport.